So today we're going to India. Not literally, of course, we're going to talk about India. Why? Because we were triggered by an article in the Dutch press about the Indian stock market. And there's also, I think, a lot of clients always ask us about the Indian stock market. What do we do with it? It's a completely different market than China. China is maybe a little bit more volatile. India is different. So we want to highlight it.
Because if I would ask you, name 3 stocks that are one of the 7, almost 8,000 listing in India, name 3 listings. Probably you don't know. And if I will ask you the same question for China, you know already.
Yeah, Alibaba, JD, you will get out with a couple more.
And that's strange, and we're going to talk about that.
For a country as big as India.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so big. And there are so many people living there. And we're going to talk about it, and also you close off on how you can invest in it. No?
Yeah,
exactly. In concreto, yeah.
So, but start off with the economy. What do we need to know about the Indian economy and what makes it so special and different? And you're quite positive, or at least you have a positive note about it. I'm a little bit more negative, but it's also because of the way I prepared this vlog.
Yeah, and also I knew that you would talk about negative about it, so I'm going to highlight the positive aspects. Also, 2 weeks ago we spoke over the outlook for 2025. We showed a chart. Mm-hmm. And if you saw that vlog, then you maybe remember that in that chart, the GDP, the best outlook GDP-wise for 2025 is India, with an estimated growth of more than 6%. They're coming down with half a percent, so the growth was higher, but it's for a lot of countries. But if you look at the chart, we put it in the screen, I have it in front of me, more than 6,000, almost 7,000 percentage of growth. Fantastic, no?
Yeah, no, really good. Yeah, I do want to say something about it because the references that I used to prepare this, it was was in Davos actually, 2 Indian people, one from the Indian national television and an Indian economist that gives classes on the university in Chicago. And he said, but a country as India at least needs 8% growth to catch up with the rest of the world, and 6% is actually too little. So he was not so positive, even though it's huge, but he was not so positive about the fact that it was only 6, because India is used to have bigger growth figures.
Yes, it's a good argument. On the other hand, what is going well there? Fiscal discipline. It's also expected that they have 2 rate cuts this year, 2 rate cuts of 25 basis points. It's always a good sign, I think, if you can do that. A low beta with emerging markets, so there are, of course, also because they're so large.
Unless they need it, sorry to interrupt, but unless they need it, of course. If the economy is not going that well, and you need the rate cuts.
I was
not so positive.
I was more relating to the inflation.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
There's always 2 sides on the medal.
Always. Always. And so, if you look at the emerging markets, then they're still in the emerging market, but they have not a big, strong beta. So they are quite independent. It's always good to be independent, otherwise you are relying on other places.
Yeah.
Internally, there is a rural recovery. So that means that a lot of people, your economy is of course as strong as your people are. Export and support, but as strong as your internal economy. And the internal economy nowadays are the cities and the rest of the cities. Mm-hmm. And the cities are developing, also with all the problems, with the struggles, but the rural areas are also developing. And that's quite big in India, so that's a strong part. And capital inflows, that's always a good sign, of course. Foreign investors want to invest in you. And I think that for a big part, maybe will come from China.
I think you might be right there.
Yeah, and then
I'm not saying it because I really think because China has a lot of tension with the US, and India might be the lucky 3, lucky number 3.
And if you look at the population, I want to highlight. They have the highest population in the world, 1.45 billion people. China is a little bit behind.
It's a lot of people.
And it's a lot of people. And 2 weeks ago, we mentioned that this was the first time I thought it was since 1960 that in China they had a decreasing population by 1.3 million. More people died than were born and were They came into the country. But the funny thing, nothing to do with it, Pakistan is number 5.
You didn't know that, huh?
I didn't know that.
No, me neither.
So they have
25.
251 million inhabitants.
251, wow.
It's a lot, huh? After India,
really
China, US, and Indonesia. So quite a big population, and they're of course the biggest democracy in the world, and they quite stable political environment. So all kind of positive things, Martin. But you have some other side of the medal.
I want to show the other side of the medal. I mean, the job market, and also if you look at the jobless claims applications, to say, so people are going to the social services. In the year 2000, you saw a massive decline in that. So the Indian economy was really flourishing. And the last year and a half, 2 years, you can really see that is picking up. So a lot of people are not finding those jobs. You do have education make really big steps. I think Indian people are really well educated, not because of the way they speak, but educated, like developed. You many times see that on IT level, etc. They can do a lot of good things, but it's very difficult for them to find jobs. And the comparison was made, for instance, that a lot of these people, university leavers, they work, for instance, for the government on the railways, or they work in the cities doing cleaning, etc. So it's very hard to find really good jobs, and that is a process that India still needs to go through. Also, if they made the comparisons with the Netherlands, that a company like ASML, the Netherlands is by far not a country that is a chip industry country, but they do make a machine that the whole world is using to produce those chips. So they don't have this real niche. Yes, they do. What you said before, very big in the diamonds, and they're very big in. They do have specific things, but they're not a market leader in one specific segment. So that is one thing, and also the growth. So the 6% growth is mainly caused by spending, by borrowing. So they've been taking a lot of loans out to finance, mainly the government, by government loans, to finance investments in infrastructure. And that is, of course, good for the time being that it's going on, and you need to start somewhere, but it's not like you're producing something, right? You're making something, and of course, it's necessary.
No, but from the other hand, if you look at government spending, is it from an economical, not a social or ethical, but from an economical perspective, is one of the best ways to invest in, because infrastructure is the basic for your economy.
So that's what I'm saying. Of course, if in the long term, they will benefit from that, and that's also what you have to take in mind for your investment horizon.
The Americans are not doing that.
No. Biden had a good initiative. He did a lot, but I'm not sure if that's going to be continued by our friend Donald. But that is something that we need to find out the next couple of months. All in all, I think different noises from the Indian economy. Also, the growth needs to be actually higher. The job market is really suffering. A lot of the growth came out of government spending and infrastructure, which is not directly giving the result, which will eventually, hopefully, present results in the next maybe 10 years. So for the moment.
Yeah, and what did you say from a private production perspective? It's interesting thing, is that you don't have a lot of Indian products in your home.
No. And what is also, of course, it's related to the growth, is that the Indian people itself, the consumption spending is declining. So they have less power to buy goods that they might need to, increase. And there's still also, don't forget, there's still a high level of poverty.
Definitely, yeah. Stock market related.
Yes.
The oldest stock market is from 1875, so it's not a newbie, and that's the Bombay Stock Exchange. And then in 1992, the National Stock Exchange came, and as you can hear, we like comparisons. 5,500 listings on the Bombay Stock Exchange, the same as the main market in China. So they have so much companies, but again, none of them, we are not aware of any of those companies. We don't know any of those companies.
No.
And if I will name you the top 3 from market capitalization perspective, Tata Consultancy, HDFC Bank, and Bharti Airtel. Yeah.
So telco, bank, and industry.
It's a really still, even the local environment is big, a local player, but a big player. what I found really interesting and what I didn't know is that they have the largest in the world derivatives market exchange. Bigger than the US.
You would not expect that, eh?
Bizarre, no? Number 3 largest in cash equities, 7th largest stock exchange in the world. So they're really big. And that's of
Is
course.
it used also? This is a stupid question. No, is it like?
Don't ask.
No, is it mainly private people or is it?
I don't have any clue.
No, just thinking about it because, yeah.
Well, what also some interesting facts from the stock market is that they don't work with market makers. So they say we have a completely transparent and open market. And what I just said is they have an open economy, of course, and foreign investors can come in.
Yeah.
And also, it's not that important, but nowadays, if you buy still something in Europe, a stock, you have the right of the stock only 3 days later.
Yeah.
T plus 3.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the stock in your portfolio, but officially you receive the stock 3 days later. It's also with a sale. In India, it's plus 1. So that also says something that the systems, that the systems are quite well organized. I think. That's what. And the last thing I want to say about the stock market is that it's at the moment quite expensive. Expensive from a price earning perspective.
Yeah.
If you look at the US, they're at the top, like always, around 26 times the profit. Number 2 is India with a 24. So it's a really expensive stock market. How did the stock market do last year?
Yeah, the stock market did quite well. And mainly also the stock market in general. If you look at the stock market, not about the development, but the stock market gained a lot of new participants, which is also positive. It was the index with the most new listings of the world now, 327 new listings, mainly smaller companies, but it might be that those companies going to those exchanges because of the fact that it's so well organized. It's pretty well regulated.
Mainly local players.
Local players, and that of course also gives some risk because investors will diversify their risk. So other stocks might suffer, bigger companies because they want to diversify their risk to those companies. It might also be a bad thing because some of those companies might not be successful on the long term because they're smaller. The average market capitalization of those companies was less than 100 million. So that says a lot. That's big companies, but it's not that big. So the average, so those 327, less than 100 million of market cap. If you want to invest in the Indian stock market, you can complicate your life as much as you want. But I think the most easy and straightforward thing to do is to buy an ETF. And in that case, if you are in Europe, I would consider, look at the iShares, MSCI. India use its ETF because you basically then have an ETF that is regulated that you can purchase. The ticker code is QDV5.
The Nifty 50.
And exactly, you're buying those 50 largest companies. The performance over the last 5 years was 74%. But if you believe that in the long term this will flourish, then you can buy it now and be, in the front of the queue.
JP Morgan expects a 17% growth for the next 4 years.
But it's also, if you can also buy it in fractions, you can, if you want to have questions about it, just ask us. So how to implement buying in India in different levels, or buy something every quarter, that you take it in your portfolio because based on what Casper just said, JP Morgan, 16% annual growth. Yeah, that's worth to have a look at. No, and it's the biggest amount of people almost in the world living there.
I was thinking of one thing, Martin.
What about it?
And that's that although you don't see a lot of Indian products in shelves in supermarkets, but especially not Indian cars or whatever, but you do see if you have a Netflix subscription.
Yeah.
I think more and more you see Netflix series and movies. I don't watch them that many, but so, and we talked about it in
My
the
wife
past.
actually watched one.
Yeah.
A series India, but of course she's Spanish, so she had them speaking Spanish.
Oh.
So then it doesn't really matter,
And Bollywood is bigger than Hollywood, that's a really huge sector because it's also
and they're really well made, eh?
Yeah, it's
Those
a numbers
series are really
game.
well made,
It's a numbers game.
But they put a lot of money in it.
Yeah. So bottom line, conclusion.
I think India is by itself an interesting country, an interesting investment opportunity for the long term. I think we should say that. They might have some headwinds the next couple of years. They might also benefit from the tariffs with Donald Trump. If China is getting affected heavily, India might jump on that train. Keep an eye on it. I think that's it, no, Casper?
Definitely.
Thank you for watching. Give us your thumb, as you always say, and then we're back next week.
Thank you.